one of the KPIs that neobanks struggle with is the customer acquisition cost, the cost
Yeah.
for them to bring a customer onto their platform,
Hmm.
right? You just like put up a billboard and say like, hey, bank with me. There's no why inherent in that. And the thing that we have working in our favor is that we're focused on a specific audience.
While working for a venture capitalist, today's guest Kelly Ifill saw firsthand that many Black and Brown founders don't get their fair share of capital when they're looking to start and grow their businesses. In fact, she found that many Black business owners are underbanked, meaning that they don't even have a business bank account. So, seeing this problem, she set out to solve it by starting her own digital bank. In this episode, Kelly's bringing us behind the curtain into her journey to show us how she's been able to build her bank and stay on mission with helping Black and Brown business owners fund their businesses. So if you're interested in hearing how this journey is unfolding, go ahead and keep watching. Hi there. If you're new around here, my name is Sewa Ajaypele, and I host the She's Off Script podcast where we help you create your own unique blueprint for business success. Before we dive into this conversation, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone who needs it. All right, let's dive in. Kelly Ifill, welcome to She's Off Script. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So for anyone who hasn't come across you before, could you share who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Kelly Ifill. I'm the founder and CEO of Guava. We are a digital bank and community platform designed specifically to serve Black entrepreneurs, small business owners, and creators.
Okay, so you own a bank. Now, not many people can say that. So clearly you saw a need when it came to the community and the problem that you're trying to address. So what led you to found a bank?
Yeah, it's a winding road. I definitely didn't wake up I guess I did wake up one morning and said, you know what I'm going to do. But it took, several years and steps for me to get here. I worked in venture capital after business school, and it's a very white space. I don't know how to say that. I'm sure I can say that with like less,
Hmm. Not very
whatever,
diverse.
but
Yeah.
it's what it is. And so as a Black woman in that space, and the fund that I was at had a startup kind of residency. Obviously, this is pre-pandemic when people were in offices. So
Mm.
we gave a year of space to startups, so startup founders. And so I was literally sitting, shoulder to shoulder with founders every day. And I, it was I took it upon myself to like make space for Black and Brown founders in that program. And so in that job, I started working more with founders just like on the side to help them with their pitch deck, help them like
Mm.
get into programs like ours if it wasn't ours. Um, and it just like turned into something bigger. Um, a friend and I kind of like organized ourselves around it. And so we said, we're going to work with Black founders at the friends and family stage because raising a friends and family round as a Black person is like a Herculean feat because we just like don't have the same access to capital
Hmm.
and wealth. And that work essentially led me to Guava. I personally believe that entrepreneurship is a lever for wealth creation, and we see it. Like you talk to all of these entrepreneurs who are building multi-million dollar businesses, so it's real. My family lived it. We're immigrants and built businesses, small businesses in America, and that's what like allowed us to live comfortably. And so working in venture capital, it was obvious that that is true, but not always equitable for Black founders. And having a family that built small businesses and then working with entrepreneurs who were building businesses that weren't profitable but were raising millions of dollars, it created this like dissonance for me.
Mm.
And so I decided I wanted to work with, entrepreneurs like my family who were building regular businesses that were profitable, that were in community, that were serving a need. But, we're also dealing with like these really intractable problems that like made it hard for them to get a business credit card or a business bank account. And so that's kind of where I started, just like, how do I create a foundation for entrepreneurs to make everything else that you need to build on top of it easier? right?
Mm.
Like most Black people live in a bank desert, which is unfortunate. Like 70% or something like that of us live in neighborhoods where we're not physically proximate to a bank branch. And so it just makes every everything that should be easy much more difficult. And so
Hmm.
that's kind of why I started Guava.
Okay.
Long
So,
story.
no, perfect story. So, what does one do when she sets out to build a bank? What steps did you take?
Yeah, so I was still at my job. This was 2020. And we all had way more time on our hands than we knew what to do with.
Hmm.
And I took the opportunity to kind of just join a startup like accelerator program. It was virtual. I did it, when I was not working or kind of not working. Uh, and it just allowed me the switch to be able to think about this idea that I had, more than just on the nights and weekends, and kind of create
Mm.
structure. And so the first things that I did was just like talk to people who worked in the industry, understand like what are all of the things that I need to have in place. How do you start? Where do you start? I got a lot of introductions. I asked a lot of stupid questions. And as I like got answers to those, I like started to ask more nuanced questions. I made a really, really ugly pitch deck. And you would think as someone who worked in venture that like I would make a better pitch deck, but like I was like, all the information's there, but it was poorly designed. And
It's just
start
different when you're looking at other people's work versus your own. It's
oh,
just
oh
to
my
be
God.
introspective is difficult.
It absolutely is. And also like you have, all of this insight. So I'm kind of starting to build it with all the questions that I would ask myself in mind. So you don't have the like benefit um, of ignorance.
Hmm.
And I was able to like use some of my network to get early investors that allowed me to leave my job and actually start Guava, build like the platform, hire some engineers to do it, and launch.
So it's interesting that you took the same step a lot of people do, which was to join the accelerator to at least get you the connections that you needed to get in order to springboard into what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was less the connections because I did start, I had a network in this space
Mm.
already, but it was more of like the normalization of it and the like I need someone else to like look at this pitch deck. I don't want to go to an investor to like give me feedback on
Hmm.
a draft deck or like asking all of the silly questions,
Mm.
getting introductions to industry experts, like those kinds of things were really
Hmm.
helpful. And just the 2 to 3 hours a day that it forced me to be thinking critically about what I wanted to build
Mm.
was really helpful more than anything else, I think.
Okay. So maybe you can set the stage for us and share what's the difference between a traditional bank that we've all walked into versus a digital bank or a neobank a term I've heard you use as well. What's the
Yeah.
difference?
There's like a SEC regulation. We have to say digital bank,
Yeah.
but the difference is, well, it's merely technical actually, right? So like think about like fill in the blank bank on the corner. They have a bank charter that is granted to them by the government. They're regulated. They have a branch,
Hmm.
and banks like Guava, or digital banks like Guava, we have a partner bank. And so that gives us the same level of insurance. So all of our accounts are FDIC insured in the same
Hmm.
way. We have to abide by the same regulations and same scrutiny. So like compliance, all of that is the same, except that instead of us holding the charter, we have a partner that holds the charter, and we're able to use essentially their like lease out their charter.
Mm.
Our accounts sit at their bank, and so we create the front end essentially experience for all of our members. And that partner bank gives us the back end infrastructure, regulations, all that stuff.
Got it. So I did see that Piermont, I believe, is your partner bank. How
Yep.
did you come about the relationship with them, and what do you say to them when you initially approach them to become a partner bank for someone that just started?
Yeah, it's funny because we it was a long conversation. Someone introduced us, who like had been a bit of a Sherpa for me in some ways, of just like making really valuable introductions early on. And I was really keen to have either a Black owned partner bank or a minority owned partner bank. And so that narrowed the field quite a bit. And there aren't, like, I can't go to Chase to do this, or Wells or any of the other like brand name commercial banks. There are specific institutions that do this kind of work. There are some technical capabilities that they need to have in place, as well as just like wanting or the capacity to do it.
Mm,
And so at the time, there weren't any Black owned banks who were doing this. And so that was really frustrating, because I wanted to be able to like create this like virtuous cycle where our members' capital was sitting at a bank that was, in a community that they would be serving, and just kind of creating that relationship. So I could do that. And so of the MDIs, Paramount was one of the only ones. And so this person who had who'd known that kind of was my perspective on the banking relationship and bank partner I wanted to have, made an introduction to Paramount, and they really understood the mission of Guava, in like the first conversation. And so it was like kismet.
mm. Well, I like that you were able to make it happen in the way that felt true to the mission that you have. But at the end of the day, you are a business, you are a bank. And given that your customers' accounts and your bank deposits are not sitting directly with you, how are you making money?
Yeah, we make money in a couple of ways. And so when our members use their Guava card, there's they call interchange. Essentially, we generate revenue from the card swipes. We get a percentage of their spend, and then we're rolling out a membership for our members essentially. And so creating kind of a second tier of resources for entrepreneurs to get access to experts, to business coaches that can kind of really guide them along the way, and honestly be like the Sherpa that I had,
Mm,
when I was starting Guava. And so thinking about like all the folks who don't quite know where to start, who will like start on Google and be like, how do I start a candle making business? And get a bunch of resources and be overwhelmed and like take longer than necessary because of that, like that feeling of being overwhelmed or having all of these resources but not the sequence of steps. And so kind of creating that smoother path for entrepreneurs is what we're building.
ah, so oftentimes when businesses specialize on one specific race or group of people, you will often hear people say that the niching down or the narrowing down may not be enough for them to build a profitable business.
Mhm.
So, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, it's always funny when I hear that. It's like I expect it automatically. And so I always talk about just the size of the market. And
Mm,
so there are over 3 million Black owned businesses in the country, and that's census data, which is like notoriously inaccurate. And so, we can like multiply that probably by a factor of 2 to 3, because it doesn't account for the folks that are building businesses in their kitchen table, like doing taxes or like
mm,
making shea butter. Like none of those are represented on a census, but they're Guava members. And I also cite that Black women are the fastest growing entrepreneurial group in the country. And so not only do Black entrepreneurs make up a large segment of small businesses who are, particularly underserved,
mm,
and like eager for something like Guava, the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurs also are our members. And so, for me, it's a no-brainer to build something for Black people, to build something for Black women, of course.
mhm.
And so it's just a matter of like articulating that market trend to investors who may not be aware.
Mm. Yeah, just to press you further on that, though, I would say your class of business historically hasn't been hitting profitability. So, how are you innovating as far as the financial products that you're offering in order to make sure that you do buck the industry trend and, become profitable?
Yeah, so the benefit that we have is our focus, or like the niche market that we're focused on. One of the things, or one of the KPIs that neobanks struggle with, is the customer acquisition cost, the
Yeah.
cost for them to bring a customer onto their platform,
Hmm.
right? You just like put up a billboard and say like, hey, bank with me. There's no why inherent in that. And the thing that we have working in our favor is that we're focused on a specific audience, that we can say, hey, we're building this for you, by you, ultimately.
Hmm.
And also, we understand the like unique lived experience of these entrepreneurs, and can drill down into what it means to be an entrepreneur, a Black entrepreneur building a product based business, building an e commerce business, maybe at the family business that they've inherited, right? Like we can really have, more bespoke products for them as we grow, as our member base grows, because we're focused, as opposed to other institutions or other neobanks that are generalized
Yeah.
and not serving anyone.
How are you going about acquiring new customers? You've had a lot of great press, and I'm sure that's helped as well.
It has helped. It has helped. We've benefited from that immensely, and have, gotten a lot of organic growth up until this point. We've not done a whole lot of marketing. And so
Hmm.
now this year we'll be doing more marketing. We have some partnerships, like MasterCard is a huge partner of ours that we'll be utilizing more to, ensure that we're proximate to our members, doing events in certain, geographies to bring people on board, as well as to like get to know them more, understand their needs, solve some of their problems in person, and use those as acquisition mechanisms.
Okay. So it sounds like, in general, the fact that you have niched down into a specific market is what's going to ultimately propel your success. But today, we are finding that there are other market headwinds. Let's say Silicon Valley Bank went under recently. And as a result, I think other banks are stressed and lending less. Local banks are lending less. How has that impacted you as you're trying to grow? And do you find that it's impacting your ability to stay on mission with funding and lending to small business owners?
Yeah, it's been an interesting moment.
Yeah.
Prior to Silicon Valley Bank, no one was really talking about commercial banking in this way. And so for us, it's been a little bit of a a tailwind to some extent, because people are rethinking their relationships with their banking institutions. They're
Mm.
saying like, okay, we were all banked at SVB, or maybe even people who weren't necessarily in tech because of the headline are, thinking about the impact of like where their money sits. Is it FDIC insured? Do I know the people at this institution in such a way that I can call someone and they'll pick up the phone, or email someone and they'll respond? And so in that way, it's worked, in our favor to be kind of this relationship focused bank, or a digital bank, because that's always been our raison d'etre. Like we've always said, we want to know our members as well as they know themselves, like as well as they know their businesses, so we can help
Hmm.
support them. And so it's been kind of like great for us to some extent.
Good. Wow. And so, is it just you? I assume it's not, but how are you creating a support structure that allows you to be so high touch with your members? Because now, remember, we don't have a branch we can walk into for a personal banker.
Yeah, so we have a small team, small and mighty. But one thing that we did really early on is invest in, community and customer service. So there are like people leading those efforts at Guava. We don't outsource it. There's a person that is responding to every email, that's answering calls, or reaching out cold to our members if there are problems. If we see them stuck in our pipeline somewhere,
Mm.
we're able to do that. We have a community platform where people can, talk to each other, but also talk to us. And I also do like 15-minute member calls with everyone when they sign up, just as a way to say like hi and thank you. I'll keep doing them until like I can't. And I think that's
Hmm.
a good problem to have. And they're always fun. So I try to do those every day. And so there are, multiple touch points that I have, that the team has with our members, to make sure that, we know them, but also that there's like a human experience behind all of this for our members.
And that's not typical of a traditional bank, much less a digital bank. So it looks like you're setting yourself apart.
Yeah, we definitely see that as a differentiation mechanism for us as well.
Mm. And you have raised capital. Are you planning on raising another round soon? And what are you using that spend for? Because I imagine it takes quite a bit to build something like you've built so far.
Yeah, I will be raising again, hopefully not too soon. But really, the way that we think about venture capital is like, is this capital necessary? One, and is it necessary for us to, have that exponential growth? And so
Mm,
often you'll find that that money is being spent on engineering to hire more engineers,
hmm
um, some marketing events, and marketing, human resources. So like those kinds of things, like team and product build, are what we, spend capital on.
So, being that you were from a VC background, what was your raising experience like? And do you feel like you had a leg up on maybe the typical Black female founder? Because that our demographic does have a harder time, I would say, raising capital.
Oh yeah, we definitely do have the hardest time. Um, I I think the first time I went out to raise, I definitely, had a leg up to some extent because I had more warm intros. Like some of them were people that I already had relationships with.
Hmm
And so it wasn't necessarily that like my ratio of yeses was higher, but the meetings that I got were like that conversion rate was higher. I didn't really struggle to like meet people or get calls with partners or get pitches with partners.
Yeah.
That said, it still was hard to get people to say yes, right? Like not only am I a Black woman, I'm a Black woman explicitly building something for Black people. And in
Mm,
my deck, I'm very explicit about that as well. I talk about that up front. And so I think, when there was the frenzy around like this racial reckoning, or so they call it, there was, I think, more appetite to have that conversation and less so now. So I'm interested to see what this experience will be like now that it's all died down and there's just kind of more hesitance in the market in general, like that kind of referenced earlier.
hmm Well, given all that you've accomplished so far, what's next for you? What's the next kind of version 2.0, 3.0 look like for Guava?
I mean, it's just growth for us. I'm excited about seeing, Guava members in person. I'm excited about seeing, brick and mortar stores and pop-ups that are supported by Guava, and maybe like
Mm,
instead of seeing American Express stickers in their window, seeing Guava stickers in their window. Some of the things that, are the grand vision that I have for, the impact that we can have and the ways that we can support communities are like, in different pockets of America, there are these like historical um, Black business districts that are often like really underinvested in,
mm,
for reasons that we can all imagine.
yeah.
And Guava playing a role with like the community leaders there to revitalize some of those districts, and bring them back to their once glory, I think
Mm.
is something that I'm excited to see us play a role in the future. Obviously, there's a lot to do before that, but yeah, that's kind of what I dream about and what kind of keeps me motivated.
Mm. I think the mission that you're embarking on is one that's absolutely needed by this community, but it's also quite a mountain to climb. So, as far as your balance as an individual, how are you taking care of yourself just to make sure that you do stay strong as a leader for the marathon ahead?
Yeah, I'm really rigid about like my personal routine. So I get 7 hours of sleep every night.
Okay.
So I'm not one of those founders that are like grinding and never sleeping. I think my team thinks I don't sleep because I'm like slacking them at 5 and at 10, but like that's just like when I wake up and go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I, have a really strict, fitness routine too, which at first was like about my body and now is more about my brain and just like kind of having that hour to clear my head. Other than that, like I, try to take care of myself. I try to like I don't take a vacation as regularly as I need to because I will like just take my laptop wherever I am. So that's something I'm working on.
Hmm.
But I have a therapist, I have an executive coach, I have like people around me to support me through the process.
Yeah.
And so that has been really, really helpful and important to maintain.
Mm. I did hear someone say this recently that as the higher you get to maybe the pinnacle of a career, the lonelier it gets and the more help that you need because people assume that you should know it all, right? By the time you reach that level in your career. But no, that's when you need the most help, right? And help is scarce at that level. So I'm glad that you have surrounded yourself with a lot of people who can really help you get to that next level and also help you grow in general.
Yeah, it's I genuinely can't imagine doing this without support.
Mm, mm. And so, for anyone who does want to follow your journey and follow the growth of Guava, where can we find you?
Yeah, they can find Guava on every platform at Join Guava. So on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and LinkedIn. That's our handle everywhere. And you can find me and Kelly Ifill.
If you enjoyed my conversation with Kelly, I want you to know we have over 183 audio episodes just like this one. You can binge listen to on she'soffscript.com or anywhere else audio podcasts are available, like on Apple Podcasts. Before we head out, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone else who needs the inspiration as they're building their own business. With that, we'll see you right back here next Thursday for another episode. Bye.